if you think about the grade of a comic book hard enough, will it actually get that grade? Hey there, today I have an unboxing video, and in this video I'm going to open up a box of comic books that I won at auction from HipComic from the seller Quality Comics. I have picked up books from Quality Comics in the past, and this was a lot of items that I won in January 2023, and I kind of went on a run between I think like November and late January where I was participating in I think every auction that Quality Comics was running, and I think they were running something like every Thursday and every Sunday. It almost was like a too good to be true sort of scenario, and I think we know what ends up happening in that case. It typically is too good to be true. The condition of the books, I would say, when you get them in hand, they don't, the comics don't look as good as I think I thought it did based on the scans. But I wonder, is it almost like I am looking at the scan or I'm looking at the book and I'm almost in denial, or I'm just telling myself that's okay, that'll come out with the press. I'll be able to clean that. I can fix it. It's a 9.4, even though you get it in hand and it's more like a 7 or an 8. And I think that's typically what was happening. And I had to take a break. I'm on a hiatus or a break or under restrictions, whatever you want to call it. But I'm holding off on purchasing any new comics until March 2023, just to give myself a little break, to give myself some perspective on the hobby, to think of some other things to do with the hobby, such as getting back into pressing and cleaning, making sure that I'm caught up with my older orders, get everything graded, cataloged, and so forth. And this was an order that was kind of in the queue for me to open. But I think something that's giving me perspective is I ordered or participated, I guess, in a number of their auctions and won. And now what am I going to do with those books? Am I really going to press and clean every single one of them? Am I happy and satisfied with the grades that they're in? I feel like I wasn't bidding on the books as if they could be pressed into a 9.8. I was bidding on them at what I thought would be, kind of a reasonable amount for the condition, or maybe a little bit of a discount. And I was kind of giving the books a range between, I would say, like 8.5 to 9.2, and then was rolling the dice or gambling in hopes that maybe they come back as a 9.4. But this is part of the problem that I'm having. See, I even struggled to say 9.4 there because in my heart and in my mind, they're not 9.4s. And that's part of what I was thinking about, or one of the many things I was thinking about while I've been on this break, is there are some times where I'm purchasing comic books, particularly back issues. Like, when you're ordering new books or you're picking up your books from the LCS that you've ordered on a new comic book day, you're stepping in, checking your pull box, or just grabbing it right off the shelf. That's kind of a different story. But specifically for back issues, there are times where I feel like I'm lying to myself, where I'm telling myself, like, I would like to acquire this book. I think I'm getting a great deal because it's at a particular high grade, but I know it's not. And there's something about that when you physically get the book in hand and you're really, really analyzing it and you're really, really being honest with the grade that you're giving the book, it just doesn't pan out. And it's almost like there's two versions of me. There's the buyer that's kind of obsessing a little bit on a high grade, and then there's the actual like collection curator. The collection curator, I take great pride in that, great pride in my collection, actually going through and grading every single book that I buy and trying to meticulously go through and find every defect, assign to the best of my ability as an amateur grader the grade, and then catalog it so that I can always find the books and so on. Like I find just tremendous joy and pride in that process. But they're two different people. They're two different parts of my multiple personalities. When it comes to the hobby, I just enjoy it so much, but I also approach it from different angles and have enjoyment in different ways. Like, giving comics a fresh bag and board provides enjoyment. But one thing that I want to get better at is really merging the buyer, the collector person, with the grader and the assessor that is going through and actually saying this was good value because the condition that you thought it was in, it turned out that yes, it was a 9.2 because we were honest throughout the process. And there's part of me that gets so excited to try and find a good value or a discount that I'm not being honest and realistic, where I really need to look at the grades. And even though I see a book that I love and I see a book like, okay, that's from a particular era, it has a 20-cent cover, and these are books that are going to be in this lot of books that I won at auction from Quality Comics that I'm about to open. All of those are all, it's hitting and checking all those boxes in this order. And I just need to be okay with that and move on from this side of me that's like, but what if it's a 9.4 and what if it's a 9.8? And if you stay to the end, I'm going to go through the order. I'm going to go through that exercise for sure. What if it was 9.4? What if they were 9.8s? Because I think it's fun just to look at those values and see. But what ends up happening is there are times where I'm making these decisions to buy a book because I think it is at a grade that it is not. And it is convincing me to go through with a purchase. And I want to get better at that. I want to be smarter with that. And there's nothing against Quality Comics here, but I think that there's kind of like a range or something I need to slide and adjust a little bit in terms of the values that I'm targeting. Because when I prepare to work at an auction, and I do mean it's work, it's a lot of prep work, and I take it very seriously. If I'm going to sit down at my desk for an hour or two and participate in heritage auctions or a HipComic auction or Hakes or anything that's live, I take it very seriously. So I prep, I put a lot of work in, and I think that there just needs to be an honest adjustment. And what I have found is if I'm adjusting those sliders, and maybe let's say for Quality Comics, it's like an 8.5 to 9.2 range or an 8.5 to 9.4. If I moved it more to like a 7.5 to a 9 or a 7.5 to an 8.5, what I'll end up finding is the books are not worth acquiring. They're not worth the $3 bid. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm getting a $20 book for $3. I'm such a comic book collecting hero because I got this great deal, when in reality, it's only worth $3. But in my mind, it's the thought of what's possible. Like I could sit here and press comics for years and maybe really only adjust the value positively on a small percentage of them. So I want to get to the unboxing and look at these, and it is something that I struggle with because it is the acquisition of great comics. It's filling out my collection. It's finding books from great eras, great original prices on the books, all of the things that I look at when I'm trying to win older books at auction. But at some point, I just need to be honest with myself about the condition. So let's get this order opened up and check the condition of the books that I won. Okay, here we go. This is the order from Quality Comics, books that I won at auction off of HipComic from January 2023. So let's go ahead and get this opened up. All right, so let's get to the comics that I won from Quality Comics on HipComic. All right, the first book is Super Villain Team Up number 3. These Super Villain Team Up books are interesting because they're featuring Doctor Doom and Submariner, and it has them both obviously as villains, but also fighting other villains here. We've got Tiger Shark, Atuma on the cover. And again, just like I was stating in the opening, these are books that I feel like I got a really, really nice deal on, but with the thought of like, could I improve them in some way by giving them a quick press and clean and giving them a grade bump? And by no means do I believe that any of these are 9.4, 9.6, or 9.8s kind of right out of the chute. You could see here, hopefully you could see there's some crease, color breaking crease that's going right across there. So that's usually a sign that you're going to get a couple of grade bumps down off of 9.8 just to start. Corner crunching here, right there. And I think, Quality Comics is no dummy, right? They're not going to put those sorts of books out there. They're going to let these books go. I think that, I don't know if they're buying collections, but they're probably somebody going, giving it a quick assessment. Like, is this a 9.8 candidate? No, it's not. Then just throw it in a pile, scan it, auction it off, and sell it. And then, in all of these books, they're listing aren't keys. So this is a great cover by Ed Hannigan, but not a key. But these supervillain team up books are fun. I believe there was 16 issues in the entire run, so it's a very affordable and collectible series, I think. And if you're a Doctor Doom fan, it's not that it's the first Doctor Doom series. It doesn't really have that label slapped to it, because I mean it technically could be, but because it's a team up book with Submariner, then it's not considered to be his first series. It's, oddly enough, I think it was the 2019 series Doctor Doom that was like his first solo series. Kind of weird it took that long, as popular as he is. But 25-cent cover, really, really fantastic dynamic cover art. And I'm picking things up. Anything with Doom on it, you got to grab it. So while a book like that is not going to grade out in like a 9.6, or certainly not a 9.8, probably not even a 9.4 if it has that color breaking maybe scratch or whatever that is. But I think I got a pretty good value for the condition that it's in, but I may have to let the book just be in that condition. All right, next one is Cull the Conqueror, and I am trying to grab the entire run of Cull. I like the fact that we've got the 20-cent cover in this Bronze Age book. Have awesome cover art from John Severin. And I'm being like super nitpicky here when I talk about grading too. Like, if you're talking about low, mid, and high grade, all of these books are high grade. This is not a mid-grade copy. There are color-breaking spine ticks, yes, just right there, right there. Maybe not quite hairline. I think they are a bit more noticeable, but if you're looking at things like the corners, really nice corner. I realize it's in the bag and board, but still, you can kind of get the general idea. A little bit of wear and tear right there, but not mid-grade. I mean, these are not 6s and 7s. Certainly, if we open it up and the back is all torn and chewed up, then that's a different story. But based on the scans, when I picked these books up, I don't think I really was buying any of these if, to me, they looked anything less than an 8.5. Another Cull the Conqueror book. This is issue 6. Another John Severin cover. And we've got interesting kind of cover design where you've got the trade kind of blocked off here with the character box, not really a box in this case. It's just kind of blended in with the title art. And then on the lower 2/3, you have the action sequence here with all of the detailed artwork. So tough book to get. As you can see right here, this is why you've got a color breaking spine tick right there. But the rest of the cover looks pretty strong. Again, at first glance, you're in sort of that 9 to 9.2 range. And then probably as you assess the book and go through it, it starts to drop off into maybe an 8 to 9 range, which is very, very good for a book like that. It's just also kind of trying to manage the age of the book, the demand of the book, the popularity of it. Cull the Conqueror, not a popular Marvel Comics series by any stretch, but I do like the collectability of those 20-cent covers. Next is Tomb of Dracula, a 25-cent cover with cover art by Gil Kane. And this one looks to have a little bit of a stacking crease in here that's certainly pressable. A little bit of an ink stain, or potentially some penciling or something else that could maybe come off with a little eraser work. But these are just great books, I think, to, again, take a chance on not necessarily practicing my cleaning and pressing skills, but understanding my limitations and understanding that, with a little bit of TLC, I could certainly give them some sort of grade bump. And this could be a really nice 9.0 or 9.2 of Tomb of Dracula 23 once it's all said and done. I'm trying hard not to say 9.4 or 9.6. I'm really trying to stick to the grades, the honest grades and legitimate grades that these books are. And back to 20-cent covers, I was able to snag Tomb of Dracula 14. Again, not in the most perfect of shape, but absolute high grade. A little bit of corner stressing right there, just a touch, right on the top, and then just a nick of some sort of just spine tick. So tiny here. I've zoomed in, and when you're way back here, it's not as noticeable. But when you zoom in like a professional grader would, you're gonna see that corner and go, well, not quite sure if I can give that the 9/8, but it's close. The spine looks to be very, very nice on this copy. There are a few non-color breaking ticks, but not that bad. This bottom corner looks to be pretty strong. Really, really nice copy of Tomb of Dracula 14. Here's a great book from the original Submariner series from Marvel Comics. This is Submariner 46. Again, when you get into like this era of books, you get some very interesting cover design where you've got almost like a panel and then the action breaking the panel borders. So that's kind of fun. Corner box, you've got and sort of undefined border here where the character's bleeding through into the trade dress. You know, I would say this is a yellow cover. There are yellow cover collectors. You know, this one probably is closer to that 758. I do see some creasing in here. Hard to tell with the bag, but there's some noticeable creasing, a little bit of spine damage, but not bad. But another pressing candidate, probably all of these would need a little bit of a clean of some sort as well, I would imagine. But it was hard for me to pass up on these 20-cent covers, where again, these books, you know, even at an 8.0, I think are worth grabbing and holding on to. All right, a little break from Marvel and heading off to DC here for Batman 405. This is a fantastic David Mazzucchelli cover. This is the Year One storyline written by Frank Miller. And I always try and target the Batman 404 through 407, the Year One series by Frank Miller. So in terms of condition, again, it's very, very similar, where I'm seeing some spine ticks, just a couple. Right there, you can just see just how tiny these things are, but they're there nonetheless. So I would imagine quality is looking at these, just going, they're just not a 9.8. I don't believe that they are. And even if they're close, even if that's the only wear and tear, are those non-color breaking and the few color breaking ticks and a little bit of a stacking crease, they just don't waste their time, it seems like, and they'd rather auction them off. I absolutely love grabbing these books, again, in high grade. May not be a 9.8, may end up being 9.2, 9.4 possibly on this one, and I would be very happy with that grade at the price that I paid. This is Avengers 156. And there's a lot going on in this great cover by Jack Kirby. We've got Doctor Doom, Vision coming through the wall, Doom attacking the Avengers, Cap with his shield protecting Wanda, who has broken her arm here, so she probably can't perform any magic because her arm's broken. And kind of like supervillain team up, anything with Doom I'm just keeping an eye on, so I was happy to add Avengers 156 to my collection. Back to supervillain team up, I got another copy. This is supervillain team up number 6. And look at this cover for a second. There's so much going on here. This is super cool. This is done by Jim Starlin. And this is, I mean, you just don't see covers like this anymore today with modern comics. But this is just super, I was going to say super awesome for supervillain team up. But anyway, this looks to be in great shape. Again, high grade, still only 25 cents. Just a tremendous, tremendous spine. I'm going to take this one out of the bag. I'm annoyed with grading these in the bag and board, so I'm sure you are as well at this point. So let's take a look realistically at the grade we would give this book. So if we did a quick assessment, yeah, out of the bag and board, you can certainly see here's a bit of a crease. Pressable defect for sure, but it is creased at the top there. Corner looks strong, really nice. I would say that's acceptable for a 9.8. And then just very typical little tiny ticks. Seems to be holding together nicely at the staple. Just a little bit of paper lifting there. But nice, right? Just slight stacking crease, but nothing too terrible. Bottom corner looks pretty good. You know, a nice strong copy. Then if you flip it over, it has a little bit of dirt. I think that comes out with some dry cleaning. But it's pretty bad up and down. Not terrible, and this is kind of like the perfect candidate for me when I'm trying to bid on books at Quality Comics. Like, is this a 9.4? I don't think so. I think I always give the dirt, depending on the severity of the dirtiness, you know, a couple of grade bumps down. So if I'm kind of working back from a 9.6, I think it's maybe a 9.2. And then if I did want to just be ultra conservative with some of the creasing and that's just kind of going on throughout the paper, maybe I say it's a 9. I don't think it's a 9. I think it's a 9 too, as is. And it probably could be pressed and cleaned up to a 9.6. So this one, I'm trying to be honest and realistic, but I have to honestly say this is a very, very nice, strong copy. The colors are vibrant. It just has some cover creasing. There's another one I found right there across Thing's arm, right? But I don't think any of these creases are so severe that it knocks it to a 9 because the spine is ultra strong. So this would be something I would put in a pile where it is a clean and pressed candidate that would need some love, but not that much. Not as much as you think. And this would be something I'd be willing to work on and invest the time in because it'd be a very, very nice copy in a 9.6. But for now, I'm probably realistically assigning a 9.2 to the book. All right, couple more to go. The next one is another Batman Year 1 by Miller and Mazzucchelli. This is Year 1 Part 3, Batman 406. And it looks to be another, again, high-grade, strong copy. So really glad that I won that one. And the last book is one of my favorite, recently deemed favorite covers of Swamp Thing. It's Swamp Thing 11 by Luis Dominguez. And there's something about this cover with the Swamp Thing kind of coming through the fog or the mist with the moon behind him. And just this poor woman and the look on her face is so terrifying. She's caught up and entangled by this octopus creature. There's this guy behind her with a handgun. I don't know what he's planning on doing with that. Again, you've got sort of the blocked off trade. I love the Bernie Wrightson Swamp Thing covers. I think everybody does. But this Dominguez cover, I feel like, is just awesome. It's one of my favorites. Now, there is a little bit of an ink stain problem, and it's just... As somebody who really, really appreciates comics and the curator in me goes through and grades each one and catalogs them and tries to put as precise a grade on these books as possible, there's just it's sort of like the perfectionist in me. When I see a blemish of some sort, it is upsetting, but it shouldn't upset me so much to the point that I don't like the book anymore. And I think that that's part of what I need to start getting over. But it's a combination of that feeling mixed with being honest about the grades and the values. So let me show you what I paid for these books so you can see what I won them at final auction and compare them to current fair market values. All right, here are the items that I won from the Quality Comics auction on HipComic from January 5th, 2023. I was invoiced $108.98. I did have to pay $9.75 for shipping, which I think is very, very reasonable. It was sent priority mail via USPS, and I did not have to pay tax on these books. So I was invoiced $108.98 for the books. My total cost, if I distributed the $9.75 shipping and handling, then if my math is right, when I sum all of these books, it should equal the same, $108.98. And then if I compare the total cost that I paid to acquire each book with their fair market value, I've got this column AA here to show the raw value. Now, from a raw value book perspective, just again, using cover prices, generalized raw value, and I wish at this point they really would do a low, medium, and high grade just for as kind of strange as their FMV is kind of working out across books now. But just to be consistent, the fair market value as provided by cover price compared to what I paid, it was a $145.02 value add. And let's take a look at some of these, like Batman 405. I paid $12.99 to acquire the book, and it is a $33 book, most likely a near mint copy as a raw book. So a $20.01 value add, which is fantastic. Tomb of Dracula 23, I paid $10.39 to acquire that book. It has a fair market value of $32. The one above it, Tomb of Dracula 14, is worth $35 raw. I paid $16.39. And Swamp Thing 11, the fair market value for that book is $44. I paid $9.41. A lot of this was possible because I prepared for the auction. I set my condition ranges and I set my bid ranges. And this was one of those auctions where I set my bids and I left it alone, and I just checked everything later after the auction ended, and I noticed which books I won, and very, very happy with these 11 books at the price I paid. Even some of them that don't have a tremendous fair market value, like Avengers 156, $13. I did pay $7.95, but still a little over $5 of value added there. As is the same with Submariner 46, a $20 raw book. I paid $14.39 for that, a $5.61 gain. And the Conqueror books, number 6 at $12 and 7 at $13. Not very valuable books at all, but I only paid $5.14 each for those 2 books. Now, if they were to get a 9.4, so let's just pretend that I undergraded all of these books, and maybe I really was honest with myself, and yes, they can all be 9.4s. If I were to get them professionally graded, then after grading fees, I would stand to earn $475.99 of value being added into my collection. So if I were to sort of somehow magically clean and press these books and get them all into 9.4 condition, then this was a very, very successful order. Submariner 46 in a 9.4 is $167.33. Tomb of Dracula 14 in a 9.4, $164.67 for that book. And Tomb of Dracula 23 also surpassing $100 at $116.67 for that book in a CGC 9.4. Now, I like to flip all these to 9.8 because it's almost like a what-if scenario, but it's just, I'd like to acquire books that have value. Not all 9.8s have value. As in the case of Submariner 46, apparently it's not worth anything. It's probably just that there is no data for that book. There may not be that many on the census in general that are graded, so that is what it is. But some of the other ones are almost outrageous. Swamp Thing 11 and a 9.8, $480. Tomb of Dracula 23 and a 9.8, $586. Tomb of Dracula 14 at $623.67. Avengers 156 at $226.33. That book looks far from a 9.8. But, some of these might be borderline 9.496. But what I like to see in the 9.8 is these books that have these big, big values. That means to me that they're going to also have some value in a 9.6, 9.4, maybe even a 9.2. I know there's a drop-off, but the drop-off isn't as extreme as you would think in some cases, especially now. What had been happening over the last few years is that there were these 9.8 only, these Team CGC 9.8 people, and it was like, if you don't have a 9.8, then you were almost made to feel bad, like you don't have the rarest copy. And I think a lot of that talk has, mellowed out now. I think I even got caught up in it, and I think if you look at some of the graded books behind me, or the graded books that I've picked up recently from Heritage, I am allowing myself to acquire great books in 9.6 or less, because the keys are always going to be keys. The important books, the grails, they're always going to have it. No one's going to go back, and as much as speculators try to say Hulk 180 is more valuable than 181 just because they stumbled on a copy for cheap, I mean, all of that stuff is ridiculous. Hulk 181 always will be Hulk 181. It's not going to change. So I have moved on from the 9.8 or bust kind of mentality, and I think that the gaps between 9.8, 9.6, 9.8, 9.4, I don't think they're as wide as they used to be. And so that's where I'm focusing on taking advantage of books being more affordable in this sort of collector's market, but also that the gaps between the 9.8 and the lesser grades, I think it's also starting to narrow a bit. So in some cases, you might see a 9.8 for 1,000, and then you used to see like the 9.6 being 150 or something really, really crazy. And now that the 9.8 has dropped 50%, the 9.6 and 9.4s are not dropping 50% in some cases. They might be dropping 30%. So that's where those gaps are closing, and they're obviously not going to ever become equal, because that's the way that the market works, the way the collectibles are worked with all the different grading tiers. But my point is, what I try to do is figure out and determine the potential of a book and then work backwards from it so that if I can realistically and honestly find a book in a specific grade and look at the value in it, if I know that the potential is there, then the entire decision for me to acquire the book makes sense, because then I know that this specific book at a 9.8 is collectible. So there may be collectors that are seeking the book in a lesser grade at a more affordable price. Thanks for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.